My friend Daniel Castro, he wanted to write a book about just like a young kid like living in like a really just like dead area, and he moved away from his hometown. Me and him were talking, and I'm like, you know what, dude, like I'm gonna figure out how to run a company just to get this book out. I feel like there's something there.
Were you like always a writer? Was that like, I'm just gonna write a book because
Honestly, no.
Yeah.
No, I never thought. I did not like writing in school. You'll never know unless you take the risk. If you want to start that business, if you want to write that book, just go for it. Because if I didn't take the risk, I wouldn't be here right now being able to share all of these stories.
Hey, what's going on, friends? Welcome back to another episode of the Love Local Chicagoland podcast. Before I introduce our guest and talk about him a little bit, Mr. Aiden Branss, I just wanted to give a shout out to Royal Family Real Estate, the number one brokerage very soon in the Schaumburg area. Appreciate your support with us on being able to continue to do this show and to be able to amplify voices of people that should have their voices amplified here in our local community. So thank you, and appreciate you. My friends, I'm here with Aiden Branss. He's of Aiden Branss Books. He's a publisher. He's a Chicagoland author. To me, he's a collaborator. He's a connector, and he's a storyteller. He's a lot younger than me, but I think there's a lot of similarities when we find joy in amplifying others' voices. We have stories ourselves that we want to be able to share, but the vibe I've gotten from him, there's nothing better than just getting other people's stories out there that have good messages. And I think that's a big part of who I am. And I think that's a big part of what we're trying to build here at Love Local Chicagoland. We think we're stronger together as community members, so that if we can understand that in our community, there are multiple perspectives and they come from different places, that we all have a story. My friends, if we could come from that, and if we could modify maybe our perspectives, we can make a stronger community, and then eventually a stronger nation, a stronger world. I'm really looking forward to this conversation today with Aiden Branss. We're going to talk about his story. We're probably going to geek out as artists too. So I hope you enjoy, but enough of me talking. Welcome to the show, Aiden. Appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for reaching out, man. You reached out to me, and I'm like, this is all new to me. People are reaching out to me, and it's humbling. You know, most of the people I've interviewed, I think, are people that I've been connected to in the business community or the nonprofit world, or the people that I've connected with it, like, you know, Paul Schaefer, just, you know, unofficial mayor of Palatine, just people I've connected with, you know, throughout the community. And so when you reached out, it was really interesting. And then I talked to Allie, which we have a similar connection with, and she was like, she's awesome. And I kind of saw the vibe of you and what you're doing. I'm like, oh man, this kid is, he's on to something. And not to call you a kid, you're a young man now, but, you know, I'm a lot older than you as I sit across from you, man. But you're doing some pretty cool things, dude. And you're doing it in a way that I feel like you stay true to yourself, which is something I think at a young age is pretty hard to do. So I give you street cred just for doing that in general. I think some men never get to that in their lives in general. So for you to do it at a young age and to be able to stand up for what you believe is it's pretty fucking cool, man. So kudos to you. Let's tell the audience a little bit about yourself. Give them a high-level overview of Aiden Branss.
Well, basically, my story begins back during the pandemic. I was just in my room chilling, you know, watching like Family Guy or something. And I was just sitting there, and like the world was just bothering me. You know, as you know, it was a really crazy time, and it was just kind of like on my mind. And I felt like I needed to like voice that, and I wanted to like put how I was feeling out there. So after just drinking a bunch of coffee, I had a ton of energy, and I just decided, like, you know what, like I'm going to write a story. And then that night I stayed up till like 7 a.m. and I wrote a pretty good chunk of my first book, 2020, from a teenager's point of view.
That's cool. Were you like always a writer? Or was that like, I'm just going to write a book because...
Honestly, no.
Yeah.
No, I never thought. I did not like writing in school. It was just something that kind of came to me.
So was it... so it was just what you saw, what you felt, and you just wanted to express it? Like, tell us that beginning phase, and you're like, I'm going to write a book. 'Cause that's a big adventure. And for you to get it done and to chisel away at what it takes to write a book at a young age, I think it shows your inact gift to create and to get stories across, especially as you've gotten these books out for other people too. But yeah, what does that beginning phase look like? What's your mindset?
Just like in the beginning, I was just trying to tell a story that people could relate to, especially teenagers, because there really wasn't anything about people my age at the time. And I felt like this would be a really good opportunity to be able to share that point of view. And so what I did for the book, I just took a lot of aspects from my own life, exaggerated, of course. And I just put it into the book. And like, little did I know, like, I wrote a piece of history, and I didn't realize at the time I was doing that. But over the past few years of this book being out, like, it's had such a significant impact that I never thought would have happened. And even if you weren't a teenager in the pandemic, people are still able to just relate to it. And it's just been awesome.
Like what?
Just like, what do you mean? Like what?
Like how, like, it's still going, it's still making an impact. You're saying it's in history. Like, why do you think it's
I think it's in history
sit there?
Because it talks about one of the craziest years of all time, something that no one has just ever experienced. And me writing about this just leaves an impact in the world. And especially since we're showing the young perspective of everything, because if you look back, there's a lot of stuff from like younger kids and how adults were, but the specific age range that the book was targeted for, there just wasn't really anything like that. And that's why I think it really has it's going to leave a mark in history, I believe, because it was just something that wasn't, ever talked about. And, what I did here, I mean, it's been good. And I get a lot of good feedback from teenagers and even young kids and adults. And
you're giving people a voice through your voice. Rick Rubin, have you ever heard of him? Oh man, I'm old. He's like the greatest music producer of my era, like Beastie Boys, Jay-Z, like the list could go on. And he's a true artist. He doesn't do anything other than listen, but he could tell if it's good or not. But he talks about creators don't create for other people. Create for yourself, and if you truly do that, others will come. And that's kind of what you ended up doing overall as a creator, which is pretty cool. Talk to our audience, because I want to paint a picture for people, because it was in the school, it was in the library. I know you said that, but there was like some division around it that might have been out there a little bit. Can you, before we even get into that piece, I'm not trying to cause drama, but tell people a little bit more like about a story in this book. Like, give us a teenager's perspective in 2020, 2021, when like the world was a hot mess, that you think people should hear from a teenager's perspective. As a part of that story. Sorry.
I think like one of the highlight points in the book is like right around the time when they were canceling school, and we were just like in high school, and we were told that after 2 weeks we were going to be coming back to school, and we just needed a little break. And we were excited. I'm not going to lie. We didn't think like it was that serious. And
I was excited too. I didn't have to work. I could just stay in my house. I was a little scared. I have a family to think of, but keep going.
And then just the slow progression, like as each day went on, like it's like, wait a minute, this is something like really, really bad. And you could see that in the book, because the book doesn't only just focus on like one character, it focuses on a few teenagers, and you could just see like the progression, like, guys, what's going on? And like the actual like fear setting. And I think that's like one of those like highlight points in the book when everything goes down.
Yeah. Yeah, where did the division come from? Because there was some flack out there that like you were just trying to, at the end of the day, you were trying to give a perspective of teenagers, whether people agreed with it or not. That is a piece of art with work put into it to share multiple perspectives from different people through story. Where did the division come from?
Well, it's undeniable that in that year there was just a lot of big political and social things going on.
Still here, buddy.
And just no matter what, like there was no way to just avoid that. And I made commentary on some of those things. And I think it was really just some of the commentary on what was going on, like maybe in particular, like the Black Lives Matter movement. You know, I was very like for that, but, you know, people have opinions and they express those opinions loudly. So I think that's really kind of where it came from. But the commentary about that, I think people misread it at times because the book wasn't necessarily like me trying to make a statement. It was me trying to share a story. And I think people didn't understand that at the time.
Yeah, I feel like, you know, you don't know really any other world than how connected we are, but like we once weren't this crazy, man. Like, and there was a different era, I feel like, but I feel like now people's we're heightened. There's a heightened like emotion if I don't agree with that. Instead of just being like, well, why do you think that? Where does that come from? And I hope that as we continue to evolve, that more people could do that, because I think we need some healing through society. I didn't read the book, but I could not agree with your book, and I could not agree with some of the things that are in it, but I could still have respect for you as a creator. And it's about, at the end of the day, it's about perspective. So for me, if this is the book right here, if this is your perspective, if somebody had problems with it, like they should come talk to you and be like, well, what do you mean? And then you're like, oh, it's not what I meant at all. It sounds like it was a part of a character that had those beliefs. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
And then they didn't like that. Like, it's freedom of speech where I come from, to be able to share that. And you obviously, you have, there's movements everywhere, and there's negative condensation to movements on all sides, on both political aisles, on both aisles in general. But movements are there for a reason, and movements are there because people have been impacted in some way. So what I'm challenging people now with our audience and in my family and in my community is like, we need to talk to people that are different to seek to understand one another's perspectives, because this division that is being built within us is not healthy, and it's going to put us into a bad spot. And we should, if somebody's upset enough to march, shouldn't we ask why? And shouldn't we seek to understand what their stories are? And it's a big part of, like, when I see your story from the outside, that like shoots out at me, those things, which I think for me naturally come out. It's a big part of why I'm amplifying voices, like, you know, in my own way with Love Local. So you wrote these books, you wrote that book, and then it wasn't just your book. Did you have visions early on that you were like, hey, I'm going to build Aiden Branss Books and become a publisher? Or how did that story come into play?
You know, I was really considering becoming like my own publishing company for a little bit, but at the time, like especially when I was in high school, like I had no idea what I was doing. So I just it was just always something like in the back of my mind, but it really, it turned into a company because my friend, Daniel Castro, he wanted to write a book about, just like a young kid, like living in like a really just like dead area. And he moved away from his hometown with all his friends. And that was like the first time, like, you know what, like I could really share like someone else's perspective. And me and him were talking, and I'm like, you know what, dude, like I'm going to figure out how to run a company just to get this book out. I feel like there's something there. And I just did a lot of research, and it took a lot of time to, you know, figure out like the ins and outs of like running a company and how to do this on your own and all the complicated stuff. But I just really felt like inspired by him. And then my friend Reed also wanted to share his perspective. And, you know, I just, when the company was like starting to get going, I'm like, bro, you should really just write a book about your perspective. So it just, I had motivation from not only some of like my supporters and like fans, but also my friends.
Yeah, that's super cool. Where did it, not everybody sees and has the intuition or the want to amplify others' voices. Where did that come from you?
I mean,
Where did it come from? And why do you think it's important?
honestly, I don't exactly know where it came from. I think it came from just the fact that I wrote the first book and I told my point of view. But as I started to just like think about it over time, like I felt like the world is bigger than just my point of view. So that's why I just felt the need to share other people's point of views. And that's as simple as it is. Like I just felt that in my heart and I just knew it was the thing I was meant to do.
Yeah. I go back to Love Local. I feel that same way I have no clue where it comes from, but it's more of like there's this true passion to show others perspectives because we all have a perspective, and to be able to understand that our perspective is just one perspective and that there's multiple perspectives in the world and that it's important for us to not always agree with other perspectives, but to take it in and to understand that, life might be tougher or might be easier or life might be, they might have seen things we've never imagined that impact our souls. Like trauma stays within us. Things happen in young ages. So those traumas stay with us. So to be able to share those stories, I think is enlightening. And I think I think people need more of it because there's a lot of perspectives out there, right? And we're touching on. I think you're doing some amazing things. We're at different levels. We're still in kind of the startup phase. You're printing books, but the goal there is the same: is to get voices out there that need to be able to be heard. How did you talk to us? How did you find these authors? Did you go searching for them? Did they come to you? How did you build a relationship with them? Yeah.
Well, everybody I knew like somewhat previously, and like with my friend Danny, like he was already like my friend at that point, but people just like these old people I like went to school with or just like old friendships that I used to have with people, they just they came to me and they're like, Aiden, I got this idea, and like they give me like this really good pitch, and I'm like, I really like what you're saying. I really think we should do this. So it's kind of like a mixed bag. Sometimes I'll go to them, like with your read. I kind of had to convince him because I knew he had a good story, and he didn't want to write the book, but I knew he had something there. So sometimes I kind of have like more of a active, like creative role in some of their books, but it just varies by author,
Yeah, that's super cool. When we talked about stories, there's a vibe to all these stories. You're getting people stories that, that may not always get their stories heard in today's world. Can you talk to us about some of the authors that you have out there right now and some of the books that you have and the stories that are in them? And it could be right here. We already talked about yours. That was yours too. So maybe actually not that. Talk about some of your authors' books and stories that you thought those perspectives were needed in our world.
Well, my friend Jaquel, he wrote a book called The Pyromaniac. Now, I know by the title, like that seems like crazy, but I promise it's not like what people might think when they hear a title like that. He basically wrote like a book about like a teenage orphan who ends up getting like these special abilities, and he's like able to like resist fire and stuff like that. And even though a book like his is more fictional and everything, I think it still like tells a really like good perspective of just like how this young man grew up and the things he went through, just especially like being an orphan and kind of like how that would affect someone's mental health and even physical health. And when we do certain books that are a little more fictional, like we still try to like include a lot of realistic elements into it so people can still relate to it. I think another standout book that we have is, of course, my friend Evelyn. She's writing a book called The Invisible Battle. It's going to come out very soon. And she talks about this character who was diagnosed with a really chronic illness and how that would affect a teenager. And she took a lot from her own life and her own experiences and put it into that character. And what we do is we take our own personal stories and we put them into these characters. So like my character, the author, Yurid's character, the short kid, we have these characters where they're somewhat a reflection of us, but they're their own people.
Yeah. I love that, man. And we have a little bit of a clip, right?
Yeah.
From Evelyn with the Invisible Battle. She did a little video for us. So we'll clip to that right now and then we'll come back.
Hey everyone, my name is Evelyn and I am 21 years old. I am working on a debut book called The Invisible Battle. I'm really excited to share my story with the world. It follows a teenager named Avery Bloom and her battle with living with a chronic illness. I took a lot of inspiration from my own life and put it into this story, and I hope sharing my point of view of the world inspires and resonates with the readers.
Wow, Aiden, it's kind of what it's all about. You said it with her, but she took her story and she flipped it around and she went out to tell a story with the hopes of being able to help other people that are going through that same struggle. And you're amplifying voices that are like that, which I think is like, we need more of that, dude. Like we really do in this world, the world is short. You're younger than me, but like we're not going to be remembered by future generations just like we don't remember the past generations. This world goes quick. So the mark of the stories that we could leave behind to put them into art form, whether it's video or for us for video or for you doing it this way with amplifying other voices. I'm excited to see where you continue to take your journey. And I think wherever it goes, it's going to be pretty frapping cool, man. Building a publishing company could not have been easy. And what's been like the most challenging parts of doing this as you've amplified others' voices? I mean, this is in a short period of time within the last few years too, right?
I think the complicated stuff is like working with like the large retailers. Like that's always like the thing that's kind of annoying because like each, retailer has their own guidelines and stuff like that. And, we have to kind of follow those guidelines to like get our books like in big stores and stuff like that. That's definitely been like one thing. And I think just, more simply like the creation of all of these books, like it takes time, because the thing is like I'm a perfectionist. I want everything to look perfect. I want it to just look beautiful because I want someone to be able to pick up a book and be like, oh, wow, that's like so nice, So I think that's just kind of like me personally, though. And I guess it's not really the hardest part, but just again, like I had to learn like how to work as a team and like how we could all come together. And, like we have pretty frequent meetings. We'll all come together and share ideas. And, like another big thing we're trying to do is events and book signing events. And because we're trying to get ourselves out there and just have good conversations with people, just like we could relate to them on a lot of levels. We've had a lot of good fan interactions. So everything's been like a crazy process. And I think sometimes it's crazy. I've done so much and I'm only 21, but it's like kind of cool because I feel like
you can build anything at any
even
age.
Though I'm only 21, I feel like I've already had such a long career, but it's really just the beginning of everything. And everyone's going to see that.
Yeah, I think that's the way to look at life and just hone the moment and create in it. And over time, you have collective different views that you get to look back behind, right, as you continue to move forward, that help shape your future decisions sometimes too. So I love it, man. I think an entrepreneur could be any age. I wish they had entrepreneurship. It did, but it wasn't talked about like it is now when I was younger. But it was like, that's what I was built for, not some corporate job or whatever like that. So if you're built for it, dude, you're built for it. Go, and handle each day at a time and try to have good values and morals and not be a dick along the way. And usually you'll end out, as long as you treat people good, you'll end up in a good spot. We're getting ready to wrap up here, man. But can you discuss any new projects that you're excited about? I checked out your site, and there's stuff coming.
We got a few new books coming out in 2025. The first one is called Damaris and the Shore Kid: The Hunt for the Golden Keys. It's a book written by Daniel Castro and Zadie, and it's just like a really kind of cool adventure book. We have Evelyn's book, The Invisible Battle, coming out. My friend Ryan, who's actually serving in the Marines, he has a book coming out. It's called Segun's Journey, and that's just like him sharing his perspective, like moving from Africa, coming to America, and then ultimately joining the military.
Wow.
And then Jaquel has a sequel to his book called The Pyromaniac Book 2. And I have a book coming out this year, but I can't talk about it yet.
All right. Where can people stay connected with you so when you can talk about it, they can know, or about any of your other books?
They can check out our website, aidenbrandsbooks.com. Wherever they want buy books from, our books are there, so you could find us that way. You could just Google me, like, or our Instagram, Aiden Branss Books. You should be able to find me.
Cool. Yeah, I think so. You when you Google your name, lots of stuff pops up, man. So keep building and keep moving forward, man. Any last words for our audience before we part ways?
Yes. You'll never know unless you take the risk. If you want to start that business, if you want to write that book, if you want to do whatever, just go for it. Because if I didn't take the risk, I wouldn't be here right now being able to share all of these stories. So that's just my big piece of advice. Just take the risk.
That's great advice, man. I really appreciate you just sharing your story today, and I hope as you inspire others too. We all have a gift in us. Not everybody could get to that gift for whatever reason. It seems like God's blessed you with a gift to amplify voices and to get your own messages across. So keep going, dude.
Thank you.
And I look forward to getting to know you more as we continue to evolve. So thanks for being on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
My friends, this dude dropped a lot of wisdom, and he's younger than most of us. If we can help amplify stories of people in our world that have different perspectives, and we could read them and we could understand where people come from, shit's just going to be better. I think Aiden Branss just talked a little bit about that. I think us, Love Local, we got a little bit of that in us too. We think that the world's stronger together, and I think that it's as community members, we're stronger together, and as creators, it's time to create. And no better way to be able to start the creating process, but to be able to amplify your voice and to get your story out there. It's important. Support local, love local. We're stronger together. Peace.